Welcome to Book Echo, where we interpret a book for you in 15 minutes. Today we're learning about Do You Talk Funny? In 1978, when Steve Jobs gave his first television interview, he appeared very nervous. He was described as twitchy, verbose, and clearly anxious and uncertain. Even a genius like Jobs felt nervous in public settings. This legendary figure, who later became one of the most charismatic speakers in the tech world, once struggled with stage fright. So what transformed Jobs from a nervous speaker into a humorous master on stage? In the book, Do You Talk Funny?, author David Nile reveals the magical power of humor. It not only helps us overcome fear of public speaking, but also makes our words more appealing, helping us stand out in our careers and lives. Let's explore the secrets of humor together and see how we can, like Jobs, conquer audiences with humor and become memorable speakers. Point 1. Humor stems from keen observation of life. The sense of humor is an ability that stems from keen observation of life. David Nile emphasizes in his book that to become a humorous speaker or public figure, one first needs to cultivate a sharp insight into the details of daily life. This observational skill can help us discover interesting aspects of life and transform them into humorous material. The author believes that humor is not an innate talent, but a skill that can be acquired through practice and cultivation. He suggests that the key to becoming a humorous speaker is learning how to observe details in life and discover interesting elements from them. This observational skill is not limited to surface phenomena, but includes a deep understanding of human nature, social rules, and contradictions in daily life. The author points out, first, the author emphasizes the importance of finding the funny. He suggests that readers should learn to seek humorous material from daily life, which requires us to maintain keen observational skills at all times. For example, he suggests that readers can start by looking for interesting stories and details from their travel experiences, school life, work scenarios, family interactions, etc. By constantly practicing this observational skill, we can gradually accumulate a wealth of humorous material. Secondly, the author introduces the concept of a funny story file. He suggests that readers establish a personal humor material library, recording interesting events, awkward scenarios, or interesting observations encountered in life. This practice not only helps us cultivate observational skills, but also provides rich material for future speeches or communications. By continuously accumulating and organizing these materials, we can gradually improve our ability to discover humorous elements in life. Finally, the author emphasizes the importance of details. He points out that truly interesting humor often comes from accurate description and clever use of details. For example, he suggests using present tense when telling stories, which can make it easier for listeners to immerse themselves in the scene, as if they were experiencing it firsthand. At the same time, he also suggests adding localized elements to humor, which requires us to have a deep understanding and keen observation of our environment. The author shares a case about John F. Kennedy in the book, demonstrating how to create humor through keen observation and grasp of details. In 1962, Kennedy gave a speech at Rice University about the U.S. moon landing program. He said, "But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? They may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas?" The last sentence in this example caused laughter among the audience. The reason was that at the time, the University of Texas football team had remained undefeated, while Rice University's team hadn't won a single game. Kennedy keenly observed this detail and cleverly incorporated it into his speech, creating an unexpected humorous effect. This case vividly illustrates that truly effective humor often comes from a deep understanding of the current environment and audience, as well as keen observation of details. Through this small piece of humor, Kennedy not only eased the serious atmosphere of the speech, but also demonstrated his understanding of local conditions, bringing him closer to the audience. This kind of humor, stemming from keen observation, often produces the most direct and effective results. Through this case, we can see that the sense of humor indeed stems from keen observation of life. Whether it's small details in daily life or unique situations in specific occasions, as long as we maintain keen observational skills, we can discover potential humorous elements and cleverly apply them in our expressions. Point 2. Storytelling is the most effective way to convey humor. In the book, David Niall emphasizes that storytelling is the most effective way to convey humor. He believes that compared to simple jokes or gags, a well-constructed story can better attract listeners, convey humor, and leave a deep impression. The author proposes that good stories not only convey information, but also evoke emotional resonance, which is the key to humor taking effect. Through storytelling, we can create a context that makes it easier for listeners to understand and feel the humorous content. At the same time, stories also provide a natural carrier for humor, making the introduction of humorous elements seem more natural and smooth. The author points out, first, the author emphasizes the importance of starting with a story. He believes that whether in speeches or daily communication, starting with an interesting story can quickly capture the audience's attention. This approach not only quickly establishes a connection with the audience, but also lays the groundwork for subsequent humorous content. Through stories, we can create a common background, making it easier for listeners to understand and accept our humor. Secondly, the author points out that telling funny stories about oneself is more likely to receive positive responses compared to directly telling jokes. He believes that when we share our own experiences, listeners are more likely to empathize and are more likely to accept our humor. This approach not only reduces the risk of offending others, but also shows the speaker's authenticity and vulnerability, thus bringing them closer to the audience. Finally, the author emphasizes the importance of story structure. He suggests using a joke structure to organize stories, which includes setup, punchline, and follow-up laughs. This structure can help us better organize humorous content and ensure the rhythm and effect of the story. The author shares an interesting story about himself in the book, demonstrating how to convey humor through storytelling. This story happened when he was participating in a public speaking competition. At that time, the author was speaking on stage when he suddenly realized that his pants zipper was open. Faced with this embarrassing situation, he didn't panic but decided to turn this accident into humorous material. He paused his speech and said to the audience, "Ladies and gentlemen, I've just discovered a small problem. My pants zipper is open, but don't worry, I've checked, there's nothing inside." This unexpected confession and self-deprecation immediately caused laughter from the audience. The author continued, I've been wondering how to make my speech more eye-catching. Looks like I've found the answer." Through this story, the author not only resolved the awkward situation, but also successfully captured the audience's attention, adding a memorable humorous moment to the entire speech. This case vividly demonstrates how to transform a potentially embarrassing situation into an interesting story and convey humor through this story. The key to the success of this case lies in several aspects. First, the author chose a real story about himself, making it easier for the audience to empathize. Second, he cleverly used self-deprecation, showing his sense of humor and ability to adapt. Finally, he further extended this punchline, cleverly connecting it with the theme of the speech, demonstrating superb storytelling skills. Through this case, we can see that storytelling is indeed the most effective way to convey humor. A good story not only captures the audience's attention, but also creates a natural environment to introduce humor, while also showcasing the speaker's personality and charm. More importantly, through stories, we can combine humor with deeper information and emotions, creating a richer and more meaningful communication experience. Point 3. Suspense, exaggeration, and metaphor are key elements in enhancing the interest of a story. In the book, David Niall emphasizes that to tell an interesting story well, good content alone is not enough. Specific techniques are needed to attract and entertain the audience. He particularly points out that suspense, exaggeration, and metaphor are key elements in enhancing the interest of a story. The author believes that these elements can stimulate the audience's imagination, create unexpected effects, thus making the story more vivid and interesting. By cleverly using these techniques, we can transform ordinary experiences into engaging stories, increase humorous effects, and leave a deep impression. The author points out, first, the author emphasizes the importance of suspense. He he points out that by appropriately setting up suspense in the story, we can maintain the audience's attention and increase the story's appeal. Suspense can make listeners curious and anticipate the development of the story, thus becoming more involved in the story. He suggests that when telling a story, we can appropriately hide some information and reveal it gradually to maintain the audience's interest. Secondly, the author mentions the role of exaggeration. He believes that moderate exaggeration can increase the dramatic and interesting nature of the story. By exaggerating certain details or situations, we can create unexpected effects and elicit laughter. However, he also reminds that exaggeration needs to be moderate. Excessive exaggeration may lose authenticity and instead reduce the credibility and humorous effect of the story. Finally, the author emphasizes the importance of metaphor. He points out that good metaphors can help listeners better understand and imagine the scenes or emotions in the story, while also creating unexpected humorous effects. By connecting unrelated things, we can create novel perspectives, making the story more vivid and interesting. Case introduction. The author shares a case in the book about how to use these techniques, which comes from his own experience of trying stand-up comedy for the first time. The story goes like this. The author decided to challenge himself by participating in an open mic stand-up comedy performance. To increase the interest of the story, he cleverly used the three elements of suspense, exaggeration, and metaphor. First, he set up suspense to capture the audience's attention. He began by saying, "I never thought I would make the craziest decision of my life in a strange bar, facing a group of strangers." This sentence immediately aroused the audience's curiosity, wanting to know what would happen next. Then he used exaggeration to describe his nervous state. "When I stood on stage, I felt my heartbeat was so loud that it could drown out the music in the entire bar. I even worried that the audience would think someone was playing heavy metal music." This exaggerated description not only vividly expressed his nervousness, but also elicited laughter from the audience. Finally, he used an interesting metaphor to describe his performance. "My first joke was like a baby who had just learned to walk, wobbling forward one step, then falling hard. But just like that baby, I decided to stand up again and keep trying." This metaphor not only vividly described his failure, but also showed his perseverance, eliciting both laughter and sympathy. Through this story, the author successfully demonstrated how to use suspense, exaggeration, and metaphor to enhance the interest of the story. The suspense attracted the audience's attention, the exaggerated description increased the dramatic nature of the story, and the clever metaphor helped the audience better understand and feel his experience. This case vividly illustrates that using these techniques can transform an ordinary experience into an engaging story. By creating suspense, moderately exaggerating, and using vivid metaphors, we can make stories more vivid and interesting, enhance humorous effects, while also better conveying the information and emotions we want to express. Point 4. Sincere and moderate humor can win lasting affection. In the book, David Niall emphasizes that while mastering humor techniques is important, it's sincere and moderate humor that truly wins the audience's lasting affection. He believes that humor should not just be a technique for making people laugh, but a way to express one's true self and establish sincere connections. The author points out that excessive pursuit of humorous effects might backfire, making people feel unnatural or deliberate. On the contrary, sincere humor can show the speaker's true personality, making the audience feel approachable and credible. At the same time, moderate humor can increase the interest and appeal of a speech or communication without affecting the delivery of the main theme. The author points out, first, the author emphasizes the importance of self-deprecation. He believes that moderate self-deprecation is an effective way to show sincerity and approachability. By sharing our own mistakes or embarrassing experiences, we can show our vulnerable side, bringing us closer to the audience. This real and honest attitude often wins the audience's favor and trust. However, he also reminds readers that self-deprecation needs to be moderate. Excessive self-deprecation might affect personal image and credibility. Secondly, the author proposes the concept of balance between humor and content. He believes that humor should serve the content, not overshadow it. In speeches or communications, humor should be a tool to enhance the delivery effect of the main theme, not the main purpose. He suggests that when preparing a speech, we should first determine the core message, then consider how to cleverly incorporate humorous elements to ensure that humor does not affect the delivery of the main message. Finally, the author emphasizes the importance of knowing yourself and knowing your audience. He points out that sincere and moderate humor requires us to have a deep understanding of both ourselves and our audience. Understanding our own humor style and limits can help us avoid unnatural or uncomfortable humor attempts. At the same time, understanding the background, interests, and expectations of the audience can help us choose appropriate humor content and methods, avoiding offense or misunderstanding. Case introduction. The author shares a case about sincere and moderate humor in the book, which comes from the experience of famous comedian Steve Martin. Steve Martin recounted an important experience from his early days as a comedian in his memoir. In the early stages of his career, Martin was constantly trying to find his own comedy style. He had tried various humor methods, including traditional jokes, slapstick actions, etc., but always felt a lack of authenticity and connection. One day, Martin decided to try a new approach. He abandoned pre-prepared jokes and started to express his thoughts and feelings authentically on stage. He began to talk about his life experiences, share his observations and thoughts, and wasn't afraid to show his confusion and uncertainty. At first, this approach made him very uneasy because he wasn't sure how the audience would react. However, to his surprise, the audience strongly resonated with this real and honest performance style. They not only laughed more sincerely, but also expressed their love and support for Martin after the performance. Martin recalled, "At that moment, I realized that true humor doesn't come from carefully designed jokes, but from authentic self-expression. When I stopped trying to play a comedian and started being my true self, I actually found my comedy style." This experience became a turning point in Martin's career. He began to develop a unique, authenticity-based comedy style, which not only made him a successful comedian, but also made him continuously loved by audiences throughout his decades-long career. This case vividly demonstrates the power of sincere and moderate humor. By showing his true self and sharing real experiences and thoughts, Martin created a more sincere, more connected form of humor. This kind of humor not only elicits laughter, but also establishes deeper emotional connections, thus winning the audience's lasting affection. Through this case, we can see that truly effective humor is not just about applying techniques, but more importantly about authenticity and moderation. When we can show our true selves in humor, while maintaining moderation and respect for the audience, we can create both interesting and meaningful communication experiences, thus winning others' lasting affection and respect. In summary, the author emphasizes through this point that humor should not be a superficial technique or tool, but a natural expression of our true personality. Sincere and moderate humor can help us establish deeper connections, convey more powerful messages, and win others' affection and respect in the long run. This humor approach not only increases the effectiveness of our communication, but also helps us build better interpersonal relationships in our personal and professional lives. The interpretation of "Do You Talk Funny" ends here. Let's review the core points of this book. David Niles shows us that humor is not just a talent, but a skill that can be acquired through practice and cultivation. By keenly observing life, we can discover humorous material. Through storytelling, we can more effectively convey humor. By using suspense, exaggeration, and metaphor, we can enhance the interest of stories. And sincere and moderate humor can win others' lasting affection. These insights are not only applicable to public speaking, but can also be applied to our daily communication. By cultivating a sense of humor, we can resolve awkward situations, ease tension, and better express our thoughts. Remember, humor is not about being the center of attention, but about establishing deeper connections. When we learn to view life in a humorous way, we not only make our own lives more enjoyable, but also bring joy to those around us. Let's start from today. Try to observe life with a humorous perspective. Tell stories in interesting ways, and you'll find that there are moments that make you smile everywhere in life. Who says you can't become the next humor master?